Hey, Dr. Julie.
Hello,
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm good.
Yeah. So today I have a very interesting topic.
Okay.
Yeah, and it can be one of the most detrimental topics for parents and new parents to be dealing with. So today's title is Colic Commonality. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Prime Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Skip Weiss, the Bowtie Chiropractor, and I am here with the wonderful and amazing Dr. Julie Weiss. It's so good to see you today.
Hi.
And you look beautiful. I love that jacket on you.
Thank
I
you.
always love that jacket. That's always a good looking one. And you're not blending into the background too much. So I like it. That one, it's just, you look, I don't know how to put it. I just really like that one. Just like the green one. You always look good in your jacket.
I like my green one.
Yeah, I know you do. And so, Dr. Julie, we're going to touch on a very, very common asked question here in this office at Prime Family Chiropractic Centers, and commonality of a health problem with children, especially with newborns, actually only with newborns, and that's colic. And colic can be extremely detrimental to families, can be extremely trying, extremely hard. Hell, we've even seen it to the point where we've almost had couples get divorced over a colicky child. And that is exactly not what they wanted to have happen. But this little bundle of joy who ends up being amazing the first 4 weeks of life, and then all of a sudden a switch just gets hit right around 5 to 6 weeks, and the child is crying, inconsolable, miserable at night, and it can just be horrible for parents to be experiencing. And it's a tough thing to deal with.
It's devastating,
It is devastating, and
exhausting.
it is. So, do you want to give a mom's point of view on this right away? Because we've talked about what leads up to subluxation and misalignment in a child and nerve root irritation, especially at the base of the skull, which is where a lot of this stems from. We talked about birth trauma in previous episodes. For those of you out there who might be new to the podcast, new to this type of environment that Dr. Julie and I are talking in, go over to YouTube, have a listen to previous podcasts because we go through this whole cascade that leads up to it. But from a mom's perspective, it's tough. It's very hard.
It's very, very trying. And I think there's a difference between a baby that is maybe inconsolable, that maybe cries every once in a while. As a new baby, right? They have three things. They should eat, they should sleep, and they should poop.
Mm-hmm.
In between that, yes, they can't speak. So their crying is a sign that, hey, I need help with something, right? And so sometimes you can get really in tune with, oh, that cry means that I have a wet diaper. That cry means that it's poopy. Some moms are really intuitive that they can tell what the cry means if I'm hungry. But there comes a time of when the crying is just different, and it's ongoing. It's nonstop. There's, you've checked all of the. Are we hungry? Do we need sleep? Is the diaper good to go? And when that baby is just unbearable and they seem like they are uncomfortable in their own skin,
Mm-hmm.
that they can't get comfortable and they're constantly screaming and whirling, pulling their legs up, that is a really, really good indicator of colic.
That cry is a painful cry.
Oh,
It's different from any other cry you will hear your child. It's different from any other cry you will experience unless they're older and truthfully get hurt. And I think that is hardwired into you, a certain cry out of your child, no matter what the age. When it sounds a certain way, you know that they're immediately hurt.
yeah,
And
it's
the
that
same
it's that
thing.
shriek. It gets gut wrenching,
Mhm.
and like we've been out and about, like when we even see babies that come in by us, it's just like, oh,
Well,
it's
I think it develops PTSD in parents
absolutely.
because we see it a lot in our office here at Prime Family Centers. Is we'll have parents who have had previous children who have dealt with colic, and they'll hear a baby cry, and they immediately, you can see them get on edge, get worried, because they've literally had their life changed and impacted. Mm-hmm. So I think one of the most common questions we get all the time, though, and I have some wrote down here, is what defines colic? Because it's kind of a trash can diagnosis. Because is my baby colicky? you'll have somebody tell you, yes, your baby's colicky. No, they're not colicky. If we look in the diagnosis description of a child, it's a baby that cries more than 3 hours a day, 3 times that day, or more than 3 days a week for 3 weeks on end. So it's a 3 by 3, 3 hours a day for more than 3 days a week for more than 3 weeks on end. That's the diagnosis. That's the diagnosis of colic. That's crap, okay? But it will tell you, in my mind, when I hear that, that sounds like an absolute miserable time and very hard on mom, especially if mom is dealing, like we talked about previous, with postpartum depression or anything that makes her feel not worthy. And then one of the most common underlying causes with colic is latch and mal-latch or poor latch. And I think that as a mom that has breastfed 2 babies and given hundreds of moms breastfeeding advice, what are some of those signs that we've talked about previous, but let's go back over them, that moms can look for with poor latch?
So if we have a baby that's already upset, it's going to be difficult for them to be able to latch.
Yep.
And so if there is discomfort with them being able to even get comfortable enough to latch,
Yep.
that's a huge concern. But if we are being able to feed and maybe that calms baby for just a little bit, are they popping on and off? Are they not getting a good latch? Is it messy? Is after when baby does latch on, is there milk that dribbles? Is there milk that dribbles out? When you are feeding, are you hearing, is it extra noisy, right? So there's going to be some, you should be able to hear that sucking, but if it's a constant snapping, if there's gulping, that is a baby that is like, they sound like they're like crazy, that they're so hungry, but that means that they're also getting excess air within that feeding.
Yep, and that leads to gas, distension, bloating, and acid reflux. And that's a total different podcast, which we will talk about reflux, but that leads back to colic in an inconsolable baby. And it's not okay to have babies crying. In fact, in the last 5 years, the American Academy of Pediatrics and newborn studies has come out and said that it's normal to have this stage of a baby's development called purple baby stage, which is garbage. That's when a baby cries and makes themselves purple. That's a sign of hypoxia.
But if we look at that, right, we need to have a diagnosis for all of these births that are happening when a pediatrician potentially doesn't have any recourse to be able to help a parent.
Well, it's a sense of commonality versus normalcy. And that's a big thing, moms and dads out there listening, and my chiropractors that listen, and other entrepreneurs too as parents. Commonalities does not make things normal. It'd be like all of a sudden seeing purple fire engines when you know a fire engine is supposed to be red and you see a purple one. Well, if all of a sudden now you see a bunch of purple fire engines, that still doesn't make it normal. That makes it common, but that doesn't make it normal. It just throws it off. So now all we're seeing is kids with colic. Well, let's just change it. And just like they've done with the crawling stages in a child as well, is they've completely eliminated them. And crawling in a child should happen between the ages of 6 to 8 months at the max. And now they've pushed it out to 8 to 10 months, if not 10 to 12 months, which is telling me that these children are being impacted neurologically earlier and earlier in their life cycle. And now we're just changing definitions to fit a mold, a commonality, but not a normality. And that is huge.
And again, it's not changing, it's not helping what actually is causing these issues. It's just passing it along that, okay, now we can get our children to fit into this bucket instead.
Yes.
So they can be just like everybody else, but that doesn't mean that that's healthy or normal.
Well, your child's one of one. And they're a combination of you and your husband, or you and your spouse. And you have to understand that that child will never fit in a basket or a mold because it's all individualized. But understanding that these commonalities that they see are not normalities. So seeing a kid with multiple ear infections, common, not normal. Seeing a child that has a lot of colic, indigestion, digestive issues, can't latch normally, common, not normal. And now we've been made to think that that's okay, and it's absolutely not, because there is a tremendous underlying neurological interference affecting the way your child digests food, and they need to eat, sleep, and poop. And if Go ahead.
I was going to say that because that's the hardest thing when I'm in all of the different mom groups on Facebook And just it breaks my heart when then I get entered into a conversation if somebody's like, here, talk to Dr. Julie, see what she can, to be able to help with. And when I go back up through that thread and it's like, well, I've been to the pediatrician and they said that it's normal, that it's no big deal, my baby will grow out of it. That's what breaks my heart, because the pediatrician, like, they don't understand
well,
it
how
either.
are they testing
And so,
for normal?
right, but then all of the other moms, they're like, yeah, that's what my pediatrician said. So that's like, we aren't even equipped to be able to understand that there's another option out there as a new mom, or even if like it's not a first time mom. Like if you maybe didn't have that for your first child and now this is the second or the third child, and if your whole circle, everybody's like, well, that's what my child had, that's what legitimately says that, oh, my child is just like everybody else, everything should be okay. Meanwhile, that whole circle is being affected. And then that is what then this cascade keeps on going for these families, unfortunately, of not understanding what truly is happening with their child.
Agreed 100%. And when we create this group of commonality, or this group of I don't want to call it tribalism, but it's a group feeling. And we have a tendency to do as parents is we'll surround ourselves with people that have the same viewpoints as we do. And you'll find comfort in those viewpoints, but if those viewpoints are all of the same child having the same health condition or the same underlying neurological feedback, it'll all of a sudden become normal and common because everybody around you has the same issue. But as soon as somebody disrupts the mold, and that's what we see a lot with parents that bring a child in for colic, and that's what's awesome is when I meet grandparents and great grandparents, when they bring in a great grandbaby because mom and dad may be at work, and they're like, yeah, Michael, when he was a child, he dealt with colic too, and I took him to the chiropractor, and I saw amazing changes with him right away, and I'm so happy that they brought the baby here finally because I've been telling him for months. But the thing is that there's a lack of community, and there's a lack of communication right now in education in the prenatal and natal and then pediatric world, and with chiropractic in general, and getting it out to the public to let them know that we can help with these conditions, that baby can heal, that baby can survive and be very, very happy.
And if we step back to, like, if you're a new mom, like, it's debilitating having a child like this. So I understand the pressure of like being able to, if we feel like we need to keep the house clean, we need to feed our baby, and the last thing that you want to do is, because you feel like a failure when that child is constantly crying. In any place that you go, everybody's going to stare at you because like, well, what are you doing wrong? You're a terrible mom. Why is your child crying? And so understanding that there's another option, there's things that can help with that is like step one. But we understand how hard it is to make that phone call, because it's going to be like, well, are they going to judge me of why it took me this long to make a phone call, right, to help my child, if nobody else has helped that mom to make that phone call, right? So that's that first step of realizing, okay, maybe there is something going on. Maybe I should reach out for help. But again, realize that you're going to feel very, very alienated. And that is the one thing that I know that we do amazingly well here, is that we are no judgment. And so at any time, like, and that's where we get phone calls from parents in other states. And so sometimes it's just needing that phone call, somebody else on the other end of the phone to say, okay, you're correct. Yes, your baby needs help. Here's what we can get you to, just to be able to start that conversation. Because sometimes it's if we don't know what to do. But again, we just need to have that communication.
I wish I would have known statement. And that kills me, because we've worked at this for 15 years, and there's still people that don't know what happens with these children, that they're designed to heal themselves, that they shouldn't be fussy, they shouldn't be colicky, they shouldn't be crying nonstop, they shouldn't be inconsolable. And that is a serious issue. And then where do you turn? Because when you try to talk to somebody in other forms of healthcare, they will tell you that it's probably acid reflux. Put the child on some sort of antacid, which isn't the case, because they have 1 ounce of acid in their stomach. It's about the size of a thin blast, just about a half an ounce. And they're not going to be refluxing that. Like, they're not designed to reflux it. They're designed to digest food. Like, that is their job, and to survive and thrive. So now why all of a sudden a system that's completely designed to thrive and survive not want to digest food and not thrive like they're supposed to, and And the reason why is because there is tremendous amounts of irritation between that baby and its nervous system. And the longer that child is without proper communication, they start to compensate and not adapt. And then their body starts to shut down other areas, or we have malalignment, we'll get malposition, and then that leads to malfunction of organs, glands, and tissues in a child as they grow older, let alone everything else. And this is a huge topic, and we're going to continue on with this on the next podcast about colic number 2, as some of the other underlying things that we can look for as parents, from tethered oral tissue to soft tissue issues in children, and how that can be affecting and causing colic as well. Do you have anything else you want to talk about today, Dr. Julie?
No, that's perfect.
So, parents and moms and dads and the entire communities out there, if you need anything from us, reach out, click below, leave some comments, hit that bell, subscribe to our station so you don't miss episodes like this that are absolutely pivotal to your child and our community's health. Please take care. Bye, everyone.